So one of our viewers mentioned, Father James Martin gets a platform in the church and is encouraged, and then Father Frank Pavone was dismissed from the priesthood and, leader of...
Sure, why? And that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
And again, like I say, Father Martin is obedient, and Father Pavone wasn't obedient. Again, Father Martin, who I would not agree with 50% of what he teaches, but he usually, in all his books, and I read his book on Jesuit way of everything, and it was fantastic, except I got irritated with him when he called God a woman a couple times. Oh, shut up, what the heck. It's just like, run and be, anyway. So I says, I would not agree with him most of the time. And I know Father Frank, I've met him, good man. But the difference is that Martin, when he's told by his superiors not to do something, he stops. He always goes in his books, he'll usually take it right to the end.
Yeah, he pushes it.
Right without going over. Right to the edge without going over. Pavone is orthodox is all. And again, as pro-life, nobody can even say anything bad about all the things he did to save babies. And to me, that is the greatest thing. The biggest problem in the world today is we kill our children. So when you have someone who's doing all that he can to stop people killing children, fantastic. The difference is Pavone was not obedient to his bishop. And the bishop had told him, you got to come home. He refused to come home. Had told him this, and this. And he says, and again, not anything bad about it. And it's not Father Frank anymore, it's Frank. That you got to do this. You got to respond. He says, well, I never heard from the Vatican. Well, any priest in a diocese, you don't hear from the Vatican. You hear from your bishop.
Sure.
And all priests take vows of obedience.
Right.
And it's not only obedience, it's obedience and respect. And that's why, like when people go against the Holy Father, against their bishop and everything else, I said, you're going against your vow. You're a priest of Jesus Christ. Your job is obedience and respect. So you got to obey them. So again, and it happened to him. It took years for him to be
to get to this point.
To be thrown out of priesthood. And they told him it's coming. He didn't look at the letters. He refused to respond to his bishop. So they had no other choice but, okay, you refuse to be obedient. You refuse to put yourself. And the problem with all this is we can do great things in pride. But remember, St. Augustine says, what are the three greatest virtues? And he said the first one's humility, the second one's humility, the third one's humility. That if we're going to be servants of God, we must do it humbly, or the devil can get in there and do as he did. And I think Frank Pavone's going to be still a great director of fighting against thing, but as a priest, he's no longer a priest. I mean, you're always a priest before God.
Can that come back? I mean,
again, it's been, I would think, they said no. But again, you get a new pope in there or a new thing, all things are possible. And again, but often I have found that with everybody, once we become celebrity priests or anything else, arrogance and pride can take our life over. And we start thinking that we know more, and even years ago, I used to be with Father Carapi. And Father Carapi, fantastic man.
Amen.
And but he started thinking that one thing, I was with him in Pozo Robos, and he got up and he says, the bishops don't like me. And everybody would clap, yay! And I'm thinking, there's something wrong if the bishops don't like you. Because in the Catholic Church, God speaks through the Pope and the bishops. Like I often say, people are fighting against the Pope or whatever right now, I go, what do we believe? What is the core of our faith as Catholics? That we follow the truth is given to us through the magisterium. What is the magisterium? It's the Pope and the bishops united. And so when they speak, that and only that is the truth. Now, we might find bishops that we like that are going against the Pope and the other bishops, but we got to step back and think, is this the teaching of the church?
Right.
Is this the magisterium? So often speakers, and I always say you always have to watch, because the ones that us good Catholic speakers, or bad ones like me, that you sit there and that you're when all you're doing is speaking for money because it's your thing. every red flag should go off. Every red flag. So I go and I'll sit there and I'll have someone come in and I'll say, come on now, could you come, why don't you speak at my men's conference? Well, sure, it's $5,000. I'm not paying you $5,000. Are you kidding me? And I'll sit there, well, no, it ain't what you deserve. Yeah. Preach the gospel for free. Yes. Then God will pray. There's a guy named Robert Rogers. Robert Rogers? He lost 5 of his kids and his wife in a thing. Fantastic guy. But he goes... It's a very big story, but fantastic story. And but he goes around the world speaking. He never charges a dime.
Good for him.
And God blesses him and his 5 or 6 kids now, his one son's godfather, more abundantly than you could ever do. Why? Because you're trusting in God. You're not saying, you're not worthy of me. So if I'm sitting there saying, you have to pay $3,000 for me to come in, or whatever it happens to be, that means that I'm only preaching to the rich. I'm not preaching to the poor.
And you came to Rowena
for nothing.
For nothing.
Yeah. But why? I go everywhere I go for nothing. But because they say, well, you're a priest, Father. Well, if you're going to be an evangelist, you got to do it free of charge. Yeah. And again, you don't say, well, this is my fee. But oh my gosh. And then those are the very ones that are speaking against the Pope. Because they don't want to be told that this is what you got to do. Listen, you got to go to take care of the poor for you to go to heaven. Shut up! I'm just going to preach. You follow the rules, and you do all this. And so again, like when I was with Karapi, he got up. The bishops don't like me, and he said, "You follow this. You say your rosary. You do this every day." Da da da. Fantastic. I got up right after him because it was an hour Father Karapi, an hour me, no break in between. An hour Father Apostle Straub, who God rest him, from EWTN. And I says, how'd you like Father Karapi? And everybody's going, yay! And I said, let me tell you something. He said, say a rosary every day. And I said, you got to do that. But let me tell you, if you say the rosary every day and do adoration and you don't love others, you're going to hell. We like Father Karapi better too. We don't like you. Because again, we don't want to hear the gospel. We want to hear our version of it. Yeah. And so as long as you, Father, tell me what I want to hear, I will follow you. I'll even give you big money. But don't tell me what I don't want to hear, even if it's the truth. Because I want to follow my truth by definition then.
And that's how Protestant churches go.
Exactly.
They explode and then
they go in a little thing. And I says, that's why what keeps us Catholic, we follow the magisterium. Yeah. Period. And I always say, well, okay, what is it? Look it up. Let's not just look at me. Look what the magisterium is. It's like
the Bible and the Catechism.
Yeah, the Pope and the bishops is what it is. And so, because even the Catechism was written by the Pope and the bishops, and the Bible was written by the Pope and the bishop, by the Holy Spirit, of course. So it always comes again to what is the magisterium. And so some people say, well, they can't change. Nothing can change, in the church. Well, please. First of all, keep holy the Sabbath. Why do people go Mass on Sunday? What's the third commandment? It's not the third commandment. The third commandment is keep holy the Sabbath. The Sabbath is on Saturday. And so, but what did the church do? The church changed the commandment to Sunday. Why? Because Jesus rose from the dead. And so, it isn't, like I often tell people, it's a precept of the church. To go to Mass on Sunday. It's not because of the commandment. That's why the church can say during COVID, you don't have to go to Mass on Sunday, because it's a church law. So the church did that. Or in the very beginning, to be a Christian, you have to be circumcised. The Council of Jerusalem was there. That's God's law. God said it. You can't change what God said. Well, no, Jesus came, he set us free from the law, so you can go and you don't have to be circumcised to be a Christian. We're going to sit there and the law is you cannot eat pork. Bacon is a no-no. You will go to hell forever. Many people died. Like the 7 children, all boys, because they were called to eat pork, and their mother said, you die, and they all died because they wouldn't eat pork. The first pope is in prayer. He sees a vision, and the vision says, take and eat, take and eat. No way, sir, I've never eaten anything impure.
That's first reaction.
Exactly. What God has said, made clean, you shall not. And they changed the law. Oh, really? Yes. So again, the magisterium is a living, breathing reality. So God can continue to teach us different things. The truth never changes, but how we practice the truth can. And I think that when people sit there and see if you're in a relationship with Jesus, you'll know he hasn't been, he's not dead from 2,000 years. He's alive today and he's still talking to us and still teaching us. Then we can trust that God will lead his church. The gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And I just think that kind of stuff is so important, that we're staying faithful to Christ and to his church. And then everything he promises us, he's going to take care of us.
Amen.
So,
Yes.